January 16, 2002. A routine domestic flight across Indonesia turns into a desperate fight for survival. Garuda Indonesia Flight 4201, a Boeing 737-300, is cruising toward Yogyakarta entirely unaware of the atmospheric monster waiting ahead in the clouds. The flight deck is calm as Captain Abdul Rozaq and First Officer Harry Gunawan monitor their instruments. They are descending toward their destination when their weather radar suddenly paints a terrifying picture, a massive thunderstorm blocking their path. Looking for a safe route, the crew spots what appears to be a clear gap between two towering storm cells on their radar screen. They decide to navigate through this narrow corridor to avoid the worst turbulent weather. The captain radios air traffic control to update their status. Yogyakarta approach, Indonesia 41, descending to flight level 90, deviating left of track for weather. Aceh acknowledges, clearing the 707 for its descent through the gathering clouds. But the radar display has deceived them. What looked like a safe passage was actually a radar shadow, an intensely dense core of the thunderstorm that absorbed the radar waves. Flight 4020 flies directly into the heart of a supercell. Within seconds, the aircraft is swallowed by darkness. Violent turbulence throws the 737 violently around the sky. Then, an apocalyptic whirring sound begins as massive hailstones start relentlessly battering the aircraft's aluminum skin and big cockpit windshields. The deafening roar of the hail is so overwhelmingly loud that the pilots can no longer hear each other shouting. Alarm bells trigger in the cockpit as the severe precipitation overwhelms the aircraft's crucial systems and pitot tubes. Thousands of pounds of solid ice and water are suddenly sucked directly into the massive turbofan engines. The CFF-26 engines are designed to handle heavy rain, but the sheer volume of this torrential hailstorm is far beyond their absolute limits. In the cockpit, the engine instruments suddenly spool down rapidly. The left engine flames out completely. Seconds later, the right engine follows suit. The catastrophic truth sets in. Both engines have suffocated. The flight deck plunges into eerie silence. The heady commercial airliner is suddenly transformed into a 40-ton glider falling through a massive, chaotic storm. Mayday, 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 mayday! Indonesia 41, we have lost both engines! The captain desperately broadcasts to Yogyakarta approach through the overwhelming static. Indonesia 4021, Yogyakarta, say again your intentions. The controller responds, straining to hear over the radio interference. But the Boeing 737 has lost its main electrical generators, severely crippling their communication and vital flight instruments in the pitch black. Plummeting at a terrifying rate of descent, the pilots furiously execute the dual engine failure memory items. They flip the ignition switches to flight in a desperate attempt to reignite the engines, but the torrential water continuously drowns the igniters. Passing through 8,000 feet, they realize the engines won't restart. The captain commands the first officer to start the auxiliary power unit to restore electrical power. They need the AP to survive, but the aircraft's battery is rapidly dying. The first officer throws the APRI switch, holding his breath as the system attempts to spin up. Tragically, a total electrical failure sweeps through the plane. The APU fails to start, leaving them flying completely blind with only standby instruments. The tension reaches an absolute breaking point. Yogyakarta, Indonesia 4211, we are declaring an emergency. Radar contact lost? The controller watches helplessly as Flight 4211 completely vanishes from the radar screen. The plane is entirely on its own now. Plummeting below 4,000 feet, they finally break clear of the dark storm clouds. The pilots desperately scan the terrain below for an airport, but Yogyakarta is much too far away. They are dropping far too fast to reach a runway. Surrounded by dense Indonesian forests and rural villages, the captain makes a split-second, life-or-death decision. Spotting the Bengawan Solo River winding through the terrain, he realizes it is their only chance. They will have to ditch the passenger jet. We are going into the river, the captain announces. Without engine power to slow their descent or extend the flaps, they must perform an incredibly dangerous high-speed water landing. The crew alerts the cabin, brace for impact, brace, brace. Approaching the winding river at terrifying speed, Captain Rozaq expertly maneuvers the crippled 737. He spots two bridges ahead and must bank steeply at incredibly low altitude to align perfectly with a narrow, straight stretch of the shallow water. The river is only barely wider than the wingspan of the aircraft. Any slight miscalculation, catching a wingtip on the riverbank, or hitting the water at the wrong pitch angle will violently tear the fuselage apart into a million pieces. With sheer precision, the captain pulls the nose up at the very last second. The tail strikes the shallow water first, followed by the main fuselage. A massive plume of water erupts around the plane as it violently impacts the river. The violent deceleration rips through the cabin. The aircraft's belly is severely damaged, tearing floorboards upward into the aft section of the cabin. But miraculously, the fuselage remains entirely intact as it finally slides to a complete shuddering halt. Silence quickly falls over the wrecked cabin, broken only by the rushing water of the river. The evacuation order is immediately given. Passengers and crew desperately scramble out onto the wings as local villagers plunge into the water to help. Out of 60 people on board, 59 survived this miraculous river ditching. Tragically, one flight attendant seated in the severely damaged aft galley lost her life upon impact. The survival rate is a testament to the crew's incredible flying skills. Investigators later concluded the severe hail density vastly exceeded engine certification limits. The incredible airmanship of the crew, turning a catastrophic dual-engine failure into a successful emergency ditching, remains one of the most remarkable feats in commercial aviation history.